Okay, I'm sharing. So this is the data that we have created last week, right? So favorite food of the G4C and the sales of MyV for the year 20 and 22, or sales of Proton, depending on the class lah. But roughly around is around the same. So next, kita dah Gantt chart dah siap, okay. Bar chart dah settle, dah faham, senang. Okay, now let's move on to pie chart. Let's move on to pie chart again. How to create pie chart is very simple. Just highlight this data. Okay, insert, pilih pie chart, type of charts. Maybe I'll choose this one. And tak keluar. Wait. Insert. Nope. Something wrong here. Give me a second here, guys. Insert. Awak tak mau keluar pula ni. Ya Allah. Sekejap. Never mind. Maybe something wrong sebab sini ada 2 column Maybe I can merge these 2 column. Give me a second here. How do I merge these 2 column? I think I did something wrong with this one. Give me a second here. Let's try with this one. Insert. Sebab dia ada 2 column sini tau. Nampak ada 2 column sini. Maybe itu yang silap tu. Sekejap Let's try this one. Insert. Bye. Okay. So, dia gunakan sistem color. Tak apalah. So, again, untuk elements data label. Okay. Chart data again. Okay. So, I hope you can see this. So, again, for any tables, charts, bar graph, pie chart, line chart, whatever, the first thing that you need to put in is the title. So, the title is, what should be the title? Sales of MyV for the year 2022. Yes. So, pie chart 2. Sales of MyV for the year 22. Sorry untuk yang type of food ni, favorite food of G4C ni, I salah buat mungkin sebab column silap apalah. Tak apalah, nanti I akan betulkan balik. Okay, so here's a pie chart. So it shows, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? Usually, kalau you nampak I buat pie chart ni, dia akan automatic keluar numbering, betul tak? 25, 25, 35. So, Januari 25, so letak sini 25, 25, 35. It puts numbers here, betul tak? Nampak? Nampak tak nombor tu? Dia letak quantity terus dekat pie chart tu, nampak tak? Okay, thank you. So, here, technically tak salah. Okay, technically tak salah. Ramai je orang di dunia sebenar buat pie chart macam ni. But it is not really advisable because this is not how pie chart supposed to work. Now, if you remember, right? Kalau you ingat, again, Gantt chart kita tengok apa yang you plan, berapa lama you plan dan berapa lama you buat projek tu, dan berapa lama siap sebenarnya and so on. Bar chart, you look at the high data versus the low data. Again, I told you this last week. Different charts have different purposes. Berlainan carta, ada berlainan tujuan. You tak main hantam je buat pie chart untuk data ni, Gantt chart untuk tak boleh. You must have a reason to choose bar chart, pie chart, line chart and so on and so on. So bar chart sebab you nak tunjuk pada audience. Audience nampak automatic. So makanan favorite DG4C, nasi biryani. Yang paling tak suka, fast food. You boleh tengok bulan paling banyak jualan adalah pada bulan Mei. Yang paling rendah jualan bulan Oktober. Bar chart. So you dapat tengok tinggi rendah. So here what you should have done is you need to convert this data sepatutnya. Okay. this data into percentage. Contohnya, okay, let me just total this up. 19. So 5 bahagi 30 bahagi 19, sorry, total dia 19. Okay, kali dengan 100. Berapa persen dia? 0.26%. So kali dengan 100, saya 26% lah. Sorry. Okay. So you ubah kepada bentuk percentage sepatutnya. Okay. So sini bila you ubah kepada bentuk pie chart baru nampak bentuk percentage. Sorry data I kat sini macam gila sikit sebab tahulah kenapa dengan formatting ni. So you should use percentage rather than numbers. Why? Because pie chart, the reason why you use pie chart, let me just how do I hide this? Let me just, can I hide? Okay. Insert, can I try this one? Tak jadi juga lah, kenapa ni so dia pakai dua ni tau, dua kolom. Sekejap Let me just try this one. Wait, ni masih kena. Copy number. Can I do this? Okay, let me try this one more time. Insert. Fine. Keluar pun. Sorry. So labeling ni kita boleh matikan lah. Tak payahlah point-point peratus kan. Itu pun peratus. Puluhan, sorry. Okay, now can you see it? So we use percentage in pie chart because it is much more accurate. Now, the reason of pie chart is that you... Okay, let me explain one thing, right? Pernah makan pizza tak? Have you ever pernah makan pizza dengan kawan-kawan ramai-ramai? Dengan family ke, dengan adik-beradik ke, tak salah makan pizza kan? So, when you order pizza, right, the pizza king, okay, it can go both ways lah. Sama ada you kenyang ataupun you lapar, tak salah. So, the first thing that comes to your mind when you see the pizza, right, when you nak pizza kan? Kalau you lapar, otomatik otak you, pizza mana yang paling besar? You dah aim, pizza mana paling besar. Ataupun you nak diet, pizza mana paling kecil? So you aim yang paling kecil, and so on and so on. And so daripada pizza tu saja you nampak lah mana slice yang paling besar, mana slice paling kecil. So that's the reason you use pie chart, right? At the first glance, kali tengok dah tahu, okay, 15% sahaja yang suka fast food. Okay, 31% banyak besar. So you can see which slice is the biggest and which slice is the smallest. Bahagian mana paling besar, bahagian mana paling kecil. So there is a difference between pie chart and bar chart. If you look at this bar chart here, right, you tengok data mana yang paling tinggi versus data mana yang paling rendah. So there is a difference between bar chart and pie chart punya purpose. High data, low data. Which one is the biggest data and the smallest data? Hai, kamera mana ni? Seorang hilang sayang. Tinggal 6 orang je. Yang lain mana kamera? Hello. I know. Hamzi, Syami, Alvin, Syamira, Aisyah, Khairil, Amirul. Okay, nombor metrik 104. Yang lain mana? Okay, so as you can clearly see, it's very easy for you to identify which data is the biggest, which data is the smallest. So this is why you create pie chart. Done. So any questions so far? No, lah. Okay, so let's move on to finally line chart. So again, I'm not going to focus too much on this explaining these kind of charts because you've been learning it since primary school or secondary school. So we're going to move along. So let's move on to line chart. This one's very important, right? So line charts, right? So for line charts, so again, highlight, insert, pick a line chart, and this. Again, as usual, access title, data labels, okay. Nanti isi lah, okay. Title dia adalah line chart 1, okay. Sales of MyV. Title letak, semua letak So line chart is very, very different. For a line chart, you don't look at which one. Yes, you can see from a line chart the highest data, the point of the data which is highest, not the high data, point which is where it is the mana, where. You are looking at the movement of the chart. You are looking at the movement of the chart. So for example, again, as I told you this before, for example, this kind of data, okay, favorite food versus sales of proton. You cannot create line chart for favorite food of DGU4C because it does not describe movements. As I told you this before, the people who love chicken rice is different compared to people who love nasi biryani. So you cannot say there is an increase of people liking chicken rice because these two people are independent from one another. Diorang berbeza, diorang tak dekat mengait. So you cannot do a line chart. So if you do a line chart for a data that is independent, salah. But data for sales of MyV is different because it is dependent between one another. It is doing the same thing. It is data on the one same thing. So January they are selling MyV. February they are also selling MyV. So it is the data that is looking at the sales of MyV. So there is no different data or independent data in this chart. So you can create a line chart, and when you create a line chart for this kind of data, you can see the movement of the charts. As you can see here, from January to February, the data is constant. So there is no change. So the data means that there is no and there's no difference in sales. So January they sold 25,000 units. February they also sold another 25,000 units. So the data remain constant, right? But then you can see that on the month of March there is an increase of sales and so on, an increase, decrease, and so on. Don't worry, we'll go through the words later. But as you can see for line charts, okay, you look at two main things most of the time. You look at the highest point data, highest point, not the highest data, the highest point. Okay, kat mana data tu paling rendah? Di mana? Where? The keyword here is where for line chart. So here we can see that May, they sold the highest amount of cars. And the lowest point of data is on the month of October, where they sold the least amount of cars. As you can see here, movements. Okay, so in regard to this, we're going to focus on line chart a little bit. There's a lot of words that we need to go through, that we need to understand, because these, what I'm about to teach you, a lot of it will be in your test, online test. You ada test nanti tahu kan? Okay, nanti bila I akan inform, but you will have a test. So the test revolves around bar charts and graph. Okay, so let's move. Let's focus a bit on line graph. Give me a second here. Oh, jap. Just open WhatsApp real quick. Give me a second. Let me just share with you the file. Here it is. Sekejap ya. DGU4C. Komputer dia paling laju pula. Okay. Baik. Sekejap. Okay, I'm sending you a couple of files for describing chart movement. Give me a second. Okay. So I sent it through WhatsApp. Ada santam dari WhatsApp. So don't worry about the presentation yet. Let's focus on the line graph description. Kita habiskan syllabus ni dulu. Okay, so let me share my desktop with you. Dapat tak yang dua file I baru hantar tu? Dapat kan? Okay, thank you. So let's talk about graph movements. Okay. So let's take a look at the words that we usually use to describe the movements on a line graph. These are the words that we usually use when we are describing the movements in a line graph. Inilah perkataan-perkataan yang biasanya kita akan pakai untuk explain, untuk describe. Untuk describe in Malay means mengisahkan, I don't know, describe the movements in a line graph. So let's take a look at the first column here. Okay, let's take a look at the first column here. Okay, the column is going up. So we are describing upward directions in a line graph. How to describe upward direction in a line graph? Okay, but here's the thing, when it comes to language, right, it is not really set in stone. Most of the words that we use are not set in stone. When I'm describing the words later on, okay, it can be used in a lot of different situations. And what do I mean by different situation? Let me just open Paint here. Okay, so let me just draw a crude line graph here. Okay, so nampak tak nombor 1 ni, yang kecil ni? Okay. Then can you see number 2 yang besar sedikit ni? And can you see number 3? Can you see this 3? Yeah. Okay, okay. So these 3 are what I call the situations. So we have a small increase, we have somewhat of a good increase, a big increase, and then we have a large increase. So these 3 situations can be described in a multitude of ways. It can be described in a lot of ways. One word can be used to describe maybe movements on number 1, number 2, or maybe number 2, number 3, or every type of movements. So jangan panic. I'll explain later, a lot more later. So just understand, okay, when I say number 1, number 2, number 3, number 1 means perubahan kecil, number 2 perubahan sederhana, number 3 perubahan besar, ataupun ataupun ketiga-tiganya can be used on all 3 situations. 3 situations. Sekejap, sorry. Okay, sorry. So macam, okay, sabar. So just keep in mind, sabar dulu. Memang blur sikit, but just keep in mind. Number 1, a small movement. Number 2, somewhat of a okay movement, a big movement. But number 3 is a large movement. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Take a look at this first word here. Okay, rows. Okay, don't worry about the word two here. Two. It just means that whenever you write the word rows, for example, the data rows, the word two usually comes along with it. The data rows two. The sales rows two. For example, okay. So never mind. Let's start with the easy one first. Increased. So when do you use the word increase? Is it for? Sorry, give me a second. Paint. When do you use the word increase? Is it for the number 1, number 2, or number 3? Now, let me explain. So you can use the word increase to describe these 3 situations, all 3. Yes, it can be used to describe all 3. So kalau siapa-siapa yang nak ambil nota, So ini memang akan keluar exam. Then this is how you present your assignment. Okay, you have to use these words. Okay. Again, don't worry, this session is being recorded. Kalau you miss, you boleh tengok kembali. Don't worry. Don't too much. Memang dah direkam. So when do you use the word increase? So increase can be used on all three situations. Number one, increase. Number two, increase. Number three, increase. But to make it much more detailed, you put an adjective behind it. For example, number three. Number one, you can call it small increase. Number one. Number three, you can put in a big increase or a large increase. You put an adjective behind it, right? You describe how much does it increase. Is it a small increase? Is it a big increase? Or is it a large increase? That's one way to do it. Okay. Any questions so far? Kalau yang masih blur-blur tu, ada sebarang soalan? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, done. So let's take a look at the first word, right? So again, one word can be used at all three situations, but some words can be used only in one or two situations. Right? So keep that in mind. So the word rose, or from the word rise. Okay, rose. Okay, rose, meningkat. So rose can be used in which situation? Number one, number two, or number three? The data rose to 20%. The data rose to greater heights. The data rose to the data rose to an unbelievable height. So the word rose is similar to the word increase. It can be used for all three situations, whether it's small increase, small rose, somewhat of a okay rise, or somewhat of a large rise. So you can use on all three situations. The word went up. When do you use the word went up? Number one, number two, or number three? Usually, went up is used on number two and number three. Number two and number three. For a small increase, no. It's very rarely used. I'm not saying you don't use it. I'm saying it's rarely used. It's usually used for an increase that is very noticeable. A noticeable increase. So usually people use in situation number two and number three. The fourth one, boomed, meletup. Kalau meletup, is it number one, number two, number three? Boom, meletup. Boom. So, meletup. Agak meletup benda yang kecil ke benda yang besar? Dah meletup kan? So, it should be something big. Meletup. Boom. So, boom, is it number one, number two, or number three? Of course, number three. Meletup. So, boom, you do not use for number one, number two. Yes, people can use it. Yes, you don't say it's wrong, but it's much more appropriate for a very large increase. Situations where there is a very noticeable increase in the data. So boom is usually used in situation number three. So let's not add another word. The word is called soar. Soar. Okay, S-O-A-R. How do you pronounce it? Soar. Not soar. Okay, not soar. Soar. Macam S-O-R lah. Soar. Soar means melayang. Terbang melayang. Terbang tinggi. Di atas awan. So, bila terbang melayang tinggi, is it benda yang rendah atau benda yang tinggi? Soar. Melayang. Di angkasa. So, it's very, very high. So, when do you use soar? 1, 2, or 3? Any ideas? 1, 2, or 3? Soar. Terbang tinggi di atas langit. So, is it small movements, medium movements, or a very large movement? Very large movement. Number 3. So soar, you describe it when there is a very significant increase of data. Soar, terbang meninggi. Okay, soar. Boom sama, meletup. Okay, muka masing-masing dah nak mampus dah ni. Sabar ya. I know this is a very dry subject, but ini adalah syllabus kita. Memang kita kena lalui. Nak tak nak, suka tak suka, kena lalu. Okay. Again, please keep note because this will be in your, you should do this for your assignment. You describe graph using these words. And dalam test pun kita akan gunakan perkataan-perkataan ni. Okay. So, let's take a look another word. Arise, ada peningkatan. Terdapat satu peningkatan. So, arise can be used for, again, like rows. Number 1, number 2, or number 3. All 3 boleh pakai. A small rise, a huge rise. The same goes with growth, membesar. Membesar, usually, people describe it at situation at number 2 and number 3. A growth. Growth biasanya satu pembesaran yang nampak lah. Small growth boleh, but people rarely use it that way. Usually people use it to describe situation number 2 and number 3. And finally, an upward trend. An upward trend is a bit different. Now, upward trend is not in this situation here. An upward trend is when you have data. Tengok graf ni. Data dia ada naik turun. Tetapi keseluruhan data tersebut, as you can see, dia meningkat. Walaupun even though there is a decrease, there is an increase, there is movements in the data, but overall the trend is it is going up. So that's what we describe as an upward trend. Another example, something like this. Memang ada turun kat sini sikit, tapi secara keseluruhan the data is going up. So that's what we call an upward trend. Okay, any questions so far? Muka dah mengantuk masing-masing ni. Ya Allah, Tuhanku, sedihnya aku. Kamera pun hilang masing-masing. Dinding je ada nampak ni, Ikhwan ni. Okay. Ikhwan bin Zakaria, dinding tunjuk saya Nun dengan Ha saya nampak. Muka orang saya tak nampak. Tak apalah, let's take a 2-minute break. Semua dah macam nak menyampah dah ni. Okay, sabar ya. So let's take a 2-minute break and then we'll continue after this. Boleh? Kita break dulu 2 minit Tarik nafas, minum air, so muka. Okay, done. Let's take a 2-minute break. Okay, sila kembali. 2 minit saja break, ambil nafas, minum air. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so let's continue. Again, please turn on your camera. So we've looked at the increased part of the data, right? So let's move on to the decreasing parts. Kita tengok yang data yang naik, sekarang tengok data yang menurun. Again, Most of the words can be used in more than one occasions. It depends on the situation. So again, as you can see here, we have situation number 1, situation number 2, and situation number 3. So 1, we can call it a small decrease. Number 2, a decrease. And number 3, a big decrease, a huge decrease, or a large decrease. You can use the same word, but you add adjective behind the word to describe the verb. Okay, so what kind of decrease is happening? Is it a small decrease, somewhat of a decrease, or somewhat of a large or huge decrease? So you can use some words for all situations, but some words can be used only on certain situations only. So let's take a look at this first word here. Decline. Sorry, fell. The first word is fell. Jatuh. Okay, so fell can be used in all situations. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. But okay, most people would use it on the second or the third situation. Situation number 2 or situation number 3. Because fell is considered as something, ialah nama pun jatuh, macam dramatic sikit lah. So it's usually used on somewhat of a noticeable decrease, number 2, or a very large fall, number 3. A large fall, a huge fall, fell, jatuh. Okay. Decline, penurunan. Okay, decline maksudnya penurunan. So when do you use decline? Again, it can be used in either situation number 1, number 2, or number 3. But again, decline is a bit dramatic. The word is it depends on the word itself. So people rarely use it on a small increase, on this number 1, part number 1. Rarely use. So decline is usually used on number 2 and number 3. Okay, dipped. Deep landscape. Let me explain. Dipped is when your data no. Okay. This one. Dip means celup. Dip means celup. So bila you celup tangan you dalam air, you celup. You masukkan, you pergi pantai, you pergi laut, you pergi sungai, you celup tangan dalam air. Mana kamera semua orang ni? You celup. So is it something big bila you celup? Adakah badan you basah? Tak kan? Kaki, you celup kaki ke, you celup tangan. So it's a very small thing, right? So dip is in this kind of situation. Data you biasa, okay, naik terus sikit. Tapi tiba ada satu celupan. Celupan ada a small decrease there. Dia mencelup sedikit. So this is what called a dip situation. Dia mencelup. Deep down, that's a different story lah. And sometimes people tend to add that word deep down. It's very rarely used. Then it becomes a very large decrease. But usually deep means celup. So it's a very small decrease. Again, if you don't understand what I'm talking about right now, you can stop me and ask me questions at any time you want. Ada sebarang soalan, sila tanya. Sila tanya anytime you nak tanya. So the next word is dropped. Dropped. Jatuh. Sama dengan the word fell. So dropped can be used for all situations. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Drop is very similar to the word decrease because drop can be used in all situations. A small drop, a big drop, a huge drop. So it can be used in all 3 situations. Went down. Menjunam jatuh. Went down. So which situations? Number 1, number 2, number 3. Pada menjunam jatuh tu. Kamera mana sayang semua orang ni? Aduhai. Went down, menjunam jatuh. So went down is usually used for number 2 or number 3. But most people would use it on number 3. It's a very dramatic word. Went down, jatuh. Okay, number 2 and number 3. But usually number 3. Number 1, no. Slumped, tersungkur. Dah lah jatuh, tersungkur pula tu. You lari, you jatuh, muka tersungkur kat tanah. So dramatic lah kan, jatuh teruk lah kan. So slumped is usually used for number 3. Slumped. Okay. Reduce, dikurangkan. Reduce mean the data has been dikurangkan lah kan. So usually people use it for number 1 and number 2. Number 1 and number 2. 3 no. Okay. Reduce number 1, number 2. Pengurangan. So it's not a very big thing. It's just macam you kurangkan gula. Okay. Kurangkan gula, kurangkan tea ice, kurang gula satu. So kurang. Gula ada tapi kurang sikit saja. So reduce, dikurangkan. So usually people use it for number 1 and number 2. The same goes with a reduction. Reduction, the same word as reduce. Slump, the same. Drop, same. Everything the same. Okay, any questions so far? 5, 4. Again, if you don't understand anything, or if you're confused, you can stop me at any time. You can ask me questions. Three, 2, 1. Okay, so let's take a look at the this part here, the third column, this horizontal column. Okay, horizontal column, horizontal, vertical, horizontal. Okay, for this column, it means the data that don't really change. For example, katakanlah Timah jual nasi lemak, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it shows it's describing the movement of the graph that is not really moving in a sense something like this, right? So for example, hari Isnin Timah jual 2 nasi lemak, Selasa 2, Rabu 2, Khamis 2. So it means that the data is not moving. Okay, leveled out, something like this, horizontal, did not change, no movement, remain stable. Maksudnya jualan Timah stabil pada 2 nasi lemak setiap hari. Stayed constant. Constant means sentiasa. Okay, maintain the same level, a leveling out, no change, meaning that the data is constant. However, in some cases, it doesn't mean a horizontal line like this. It can also mean a line like this. An increase, a constant increase or a constant decrease. For example, okay, hari ni Timah jual satu nasi lemak. Selasa 2, Rabu 3, Khamis 4, Jumaat 5. Means that every single day Timah jual a constant increase of 1 nasi lemak. Plus 1 nasi lemak. A constant increase of 1 nasi lemak. So hari ni 1, esok 2, lusa 3, Khamis 4. So there is a constant increase of sale. You can also describe it inversely, a constant decrease of sale. For example, today dia jual 5 nasi lemak. Esok 4 nasi lemak. Lepas tu 3. Lepas tu 2. Lepas 1. So the decrease is constant, sentiasa. Constant means sentiasa. Faham tak? Constant means sentiasa. So in most cases, the word constant is usually used to describe a horizontal line. Something like this. But it doesn't mean it has to be like this always. Constant can also mean constant increase or constant decrease. Maksudnya sentiasa. Maksudnya stabil. Maksudnya remain steady. Stay constant. Maintain the same level, something like this. Leveled out, ni. The only word is leveled out. Leveled out memang horizontal. Faham tak? Any questions so far? Ada soalan tak? Okay, I hope. Again, you can ask me at any time you want. Jangan takut. Okay, next. Let's take a look at this word. Fluctuated. Okay, I want you to practice with me. Fluctuation. The word fluctuation. How do you pronounce this word? F-L-U-K. Fluc. Lepas tu chew. C-H-U. Chew. Fluctu. A-shen. Shen. Fluctuation. Okay. Salah ni tolong ambil nota. Ni salah. Buang perkataan ni salah. Ni pun salah. tambah perkataan to zigzag. To zigzag. Okay, so fluctuation data or to zigzag meaning that basically that the data is crazy. Data dia menggila. Okay, the movement is crazy. Dia naik atas, naik turun, dia menggila. So this is fluctuation. There is no real upward trend or there is no real downward trend. Tak ada. The data is just anybody's guess. So zigzag macam zigzag lah. Dia macam zigzag juga lah. But people don't really describe it as zigzag. People usually use the word fluctuation. The data fluctuate. The fluctuation maksudnya data dia naik turun. There is no real, you tak boleh nak tengok, oh ni data ni menaik ke atau menurun ni. Tak nampak sangat. That is very easy to describe. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at this graph here. Okay. So a peak, puncak. So a peak basically means you have a data here. Which point is the highest? So here is the peak, puncak gunung. To peak, to reach a peak, to reach a high point, to hit record levels. Untuk sampai di data paling rekod paling tinggi. Ni peak, maksudnya puncak gunung. Okay. And inversely goes to, yes, any question? Okay. A peak maksudnya puncak gunung. Data paling tinggi. To peak, to reach a peak, to reach a high point and to hit record levels. Next is a low point. Dia versus dengan peak lah. So your data, so low point maksudnya data paling rendah. To hit a low point, to bottom out. To hit a low point, to bottom out. Okay, fluctuation dah ajar tadi. And finally, a plateau. Okay, let's say it with me. Plateau. I harap you, bila I kata sebut saya, sebut sama lah. Okay, macam PLE. Toe, macam TEW. Plateau. Plateau. Toe. TEW, toe. Plateau. So what does plateau means? Plateau means landaian, padang besar, landaian besar. Okay, padang flat. Okay, macam padang bola flat landaian tu. So let's say you have this data, right? Nampak tak landaian ni? So imagine that this data is straight lah. Anggap data ni straight lah kan. So to level off, to remain steady, to flatten out, to reach a plateau. Start dari sini, titik first dia stabil tu, titik first dia start constant tu, ini adalah landaian dia. Maksudnya dia macam ada bukit, macam ada landaian. Data you mula-mula macam naik turun, and then you have this stabling data. Your data is stabling. So data is to reach a plateau, to level off, to remain steady, to flatten out. Dia akan mencapai, so data you menggila naik turun, tapi dia akan mencapai satu landaian. It can be something like this. It can also be something like this. The data is increasing and decreasing, and the plateau is here. This is the plateau. The landaian besar. Usually it's much more longer than this lah. Okay. So that's it. Those are the words that you need to familiarize yourself. Those are the words that you need to familiarize yourself for your test and for your assignment. Okay, so let me describe the assignment first. So, also wait, before I move on to the assignment, any questions so far on the words that we have learned today? Any questions so far? Ada sebarang soalan tak? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sabar. Okay, so let's move on to the assignment. So assignment, I have sent you a file already. Give me a second here. Here it is. I just open the file. Okay, the assignment is very, very easy. It is 20%. Now, listen to me and listen. Okay, anak-anakku dengar. Kamera buka. Kamera buka, ada batuk-batuk tadi. Kamera buka. Oi, yang lain mana? Turn on your camera. Turn on your camera. Everybody. Okay. So, again, as I told you before and I will tell you again, your assignments are easy. Assignment you amat senang senang. Mau ada 9 orang. Lagi 10 orang mana? Hello. Where are the rest? Hello. Okay, semua ada. Sorry. My fault. Okay, so again, I promise you, your assignments are easy. It will take you maybe roughly half an hour, maximum 1 hour to do your assignments. So do not take this lightly. It is very easy for you to score in my class, but it is very easy for you to get a D for my class. Just do your assignments, hand in your assignment on time, and follow the instruction. Jangan buat cai. Okay? Very easy for you to score. So this assignment is very easy. You are to work individually, seorang, bukan group. Minta maaf, salah. Okay? Find a table from the internet. Cari table apa-apa. And you have to create a suitable graph or chart. But for my class, I nak you buat line chart. I nak you buat line chart. I tak nak you buat bar chart. I tak nak you buat pie chart. Because it's very difficult for you to talk a lot when you're trying to describe pie chart or bar chart. You can, but it's very difficult. So it's easier for you if you create a line graph. But remember, when you want to create a line graph, make sure that the data is dependent. Data dia berterusan. Jangan main ambil data table saja hentam. Tak boleh. Kena ambil data table. You kena ambil table dan buat chart. Jangan ambil chart daripada internet terus. No. Cari table, ambil table yang data dia dependent between one another and then create a line graph. Okay, faham? I nak satu line graph saja. I tak nak you buat line graph macam ni. I don't want you to do this. Sekejap. I tak nak you buat. Ni yang pemalas yang dia copy and paste internet tau. Ada dua line graph. No. Whenever people yang malas-malas yang main hentam je, memang hancur dah di presentation dia. I want you to find a table and create a line graph with only one line. One line only. And there must be at least 10 movements that you need to describe. Meaning, you cannot find a table, then graph you semua, sorry, semua menaik je. So there is nothing for you to describe. You're not using a lot of words. So there's nothing much I can give you for your marks. There must be a variety of movements and at least 10. Some increase, some decrease, some constant and whatnot. So make sure there are at least 10 movements and at least the movements are varied. So kurang-kurangnya ada 10 titik 10 titik perjalanan, movements. I don't know how to say movement in Malay. Pergerakan, 10 titik pergerakan dan pergerakan tersebut haruslah varied, berlain-lainan. If all the movements are increasing and all movements are decreasing, what you will end up doing is, okay, from January to February, the graph increase, and then increase, or decrease. I tak boleh nak bagi markah. Faham tak? Okay. Now, so again, find a table, create a one-line graph using Excel, and I want you to present it. Ya Allah, Syami, sabar Syami, I nampak you. I tengok muka student saya, jangan risau. I tanya faham sebab kita tak face to face. Minta maaf ya, kalau kita face to face, I confident sedikit. I tak confident sebab kita online. Kalau depan-depan senang sikit, I will cekik you. Okay, sorry. So, I don't want to do a live presentation. It's not fair. Memang tak pernah adil. I did try it previous semester. Nanti ada yang internet bagus, internet slow. Lepas tu internet slow tu markah dia rendah sebab I tak dengar. Internet bagus tu markah dia tinggi. So it's not fair. You will record this assignment. Okay. And then upload it in Flipgrid. Upload dalam Flipgrid. Maximum 10 minutes. Minimum tak ada. But again, this is a presentation assessment. 20%. Makin sikit you cakap, makin sikitlah markah you. Faham tak? I'm assessing your speech. I'm giving you your marks based on how well you present.
Sir.
Yes.
Saya rasa limit 1.5 minit.
No. I akan ubah kepada 10 minit. Boleh ubah 10 minit. Don't worry. Thank you. Boleh ubah. Okay. Sekejap. Let me open Flipgrid. Tak percaya cakap dia cerahang ni. PGA forcing Okay, somebody asked a good question. That was a very good question. So, I think the limit is 1.5 minutes. Bagus. Tak apa yang salah faham. It's okay. Apalah slow sangat internet aku ni. Did you foresee? Okay, let's create a new topic. Line graph presentation. Okay, you can upload or record here. Okay, you can record your presentation here or upload one here. Okay, you boleh upload record. So 1.5 minit. Maksimum adalah ya. Sekejap. Okay, 10 minit. Okay, can you see here? 10 minutes. Okay, 10. So I akan post topic. Lagging. Sekejap. Lag. Okay, can you see it? 10 minit. Okay, line graph presentation. Okay, so you can record it through. You can. Sorry, internet I meripik lah ni. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, okay. So you can record it through Flipgrid or you can upload the video. So maximum is 10 minutes, no minimum. But again, this is a presentation assessment. I nak tengok muka you. Kalau you record, in any situation, kalau you nak tunjuk graf, pastikan you record muka you sekali. So macam mana you nak record? Guna PowerPoint slide. Okay? Ataupun belajarlah macam record. Janji ada gambar graf you, ada gambar muka you. Okay? Faham tak? I must be able to see both your graph and your face at the same time. Mesti boleh tengok graph dan muka you at the same time. Dan of course, kualiti suara kenalah kuat. Deadline is on tengah malam 26 March. Yes, 26 March, 12 tengah malam. Deadline. 26 March, 12 tengah malam. Okay. Again, minimum 10 movements. Now make sure the movements are varied. There's increase, decrease, or huge decrease, small decrease. So you have a lot more way you can describe your graph. Okay, I tak nak graph yang increase ataupun graph yang decrease. Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, if you have any questions, do not WhatsApp me personally. Please WhatsApp dalam group. So, soalan you, walaupun betapa kecil soalan you biasanya amat bernilai, semua orang boleh share. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much. I will see you next week. Bye bye. Assalamualaikum. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.